I am so excited for today's video. I am going to be teaching you why men are terrified of the dark feminine. I'm also going to be teaching you why women are taught to suppress the dark feminine within and how women can reclaim their feminine power. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Andrea, and I teach dark feminine wisdom, goddess embodiment, selfish bitch embodiment, and all things womanhood. And if you have been here before, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here. Go ahead and take the time to like and subscribe. Leave a comment at the end to let me know how this landed for you. Let's get into it. So before I begin, if you are new here, I have been making videos for my Dark Feminine series, and I already have multiple videos, and I will go ahead and link that up there so that if you don't know who the Dark Feminine is and why you need to know as a woman who the Dark Feminine is, go ahead and check out the rest of my series and then come back to this video because everything will make more sense once you understand who the Dark Feminine is, who she is not, and how to embody the Dark Feminine. So today, why men are terrified of the dark feminine. So the very first reason why men are terrified of the dark feminine is because a woman who embodies the dark feminine does not ask for permission. She is self-led. So to expand on this, let me explain to you that what I'm saying when I say that women do not ask for permission and are self-led, this completely flies in the face of everything that men are taught about masculinity, and masculinity being what leads the feminine, which is not true. That is inaccurate. That is false. That is a lie. It's a fairy tale. It is a fallacy. It is the feminine that is the natural energetic leader. And men are taught that by the masculine leading, they are therefore meant to lead women. But when a woman embodies the dark feminine frequency, that dark feminine energy, that primordial essence, she doesn't ask for permission on how she lives her life, and she leads herself first, which means she is not looking outside of herself for leadership. She is not looking for external sources of guidance in her life. And so men are terrified of that because it causes them to question what their role is in the dynamic with a woman. So a woman who is leading herself is not someone who is looking for male approval. She's not looking for male validation. And because so many men are led by their egos, they are seeking women who are also seeking external validation because it validates their perception of themselves. And so when you are a woman who embodies that dark feminine energy and you're not asking for permission, you're not looking for a man to lead you, that terrifies men and it makes them feel confused about the role that they have in your relationship. Another reason why, women not asking for permission is something that causes a lot of confusion and terror, like a fear in men, is that you're not looking for palatability. You are not over explaining yourself. You're not diluting yourself. You're not diluting the things that you say. You're not diluting the way that you express yourself. You are being so clear and vocal and honest and direct about what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want, and you're not trying to appease the desires and whims of somebody outside of yourself. And so for men who are looking for a woman to be palatable and to be a people pleaser or to be an overgiver or to perform, which is something I'm going to talk about in a moment, they're going to run from a woman who embodies a frequency of self-sustained, self-leadership, not asking for permission, and feeling very, very clear and confident about who she is and what it is that she wants, and not accepting anything less than that. The next thing, that ties into why men are terrified of the dark feminine, which builds on what it is that I've already been saying, is that by a woman not asking for permission, by her being self-led, she completely collapses male fantasy. So a lot of male fantasy, or a lot of fantasies that men have towards women, are rooted in performance. It's rooted in feminine performance. It's rooted in women performing desirability in order to satisfy the fantasies or the perceptions of the woman that he has been trained to have. And so for a lot of men, when they're approaching women, they're not approaching women from a place of seeing women as sovereign, autonomous beings. They're approaching women in the sense of seeing women as needing to fulfill a role within their fantasy, within their the storyline or the narrative that they have created inside of their minds in order to satisfy their sense of self. And so that role could be anything from the muse or the nurturer, the carer, the mother figure, the whore, the Madonna. Like we talk about, in women's spaces or in talking about gender dynamics, there's a lot of talk about the whore Madonna complex where men categorize women. And this is where this comes from. It's this need to categorize women in a certain way in order to fulfill a role within their fantasy. So if they put you in the role of the whore, they cannot put you in the role of the wife. And if you are in the role of the wife, you are not going to be put in the role of the whore. And the whore, the reason why I'm using the term whore is because the whore to a lot of these distorted men represents the woman who fulfills their sexual fantasies, fulfills their sexual desires. And when you are categorized in one way, they cannot see you as anything else because men often compartmentalize women in this way. And so by you being embodied in your dark feminine energy and you are basically choosing who you are and you are embodying an identity that is outside of his perception of you, it completely collapses the male fantasy. You're also not allowing yourself to be a buffer for his projections. The projections that the man will try to project onto you will bounce off because you are so self-contained and you are so firm in your sense of identity that his projections and who he wants you to be or the role that he's trying to project onto you will not hold up. It will essentially dissipate. You also don't need men to feel needed. You don't need a man in order, excuse me, you don't need a man in your life. Men want to feel needed. And when you do not need a man to fulfill you, when you do not need a man to complete you or to establish a sense of wholeness within you, it leaves men feeling confused because in their minds, well, I want to be needed because I need to validate my existence. I need to validate the fact that I'm here on this planet and that I have a purpose. And if she does not need me, what purpose do I serve? And so by you being so firm in your sense of identity and collapsing that fantasy of not needing him to complete you or to make you whole, it causes a lot of distortion and it causes a lot of fear in their psyches. It causes a lot of fear in their system. And those type of men will run from you or they will try to wear down your sense of self. They will try to destroy your self-esteem. They will try to manipulate you into being who they want you to be. So this is where things like you're just too much or you're overly masculine. Like this kind of also ties into part one about you as a woman being in your dark feminine, being self-led. A lot of men will take a woman who is self-led, who is self-contained, who is operating from a sense of wholeness, and they will try to diminish you and say things like, well, you're just being too masculine or you're operating in your masculine energy. But what's actually happening is you are mirroring back to him where he is failing in his masculinity. And this leads into the third piece or the third reason of why men are terrified of the dark feminine. And it's because she forces self-responsibility. A woman who is operating in her dark feminine energy, who is fully self-contained, who is operating from radical responsibility is going to be mirroring that back to men. She's going to be mirroring back a sense of firmness and wholeness and responsibility for who she is, how she's showing up in her life. And men who are not willing to do this, men who are constantly blaming women for the ills of the world or blaming women for why things haven't gone right, men who have mother wounds or who got broken up with by a girl in the 8th grade and I've been hating women ever since. A woman who is modeling that sense of self-responsibility and radical responsibility is going to require him to rise into a frequency that he may not be prepared for. So they are not able to outsource their growth onto you as a woman. You hear men say things like, well, I want a woman to be my peace. That's something that you hear a lot from men. I want a woman to be my peace. But a woman who is so clear in her feminine energy is not here to be a man's peace. You are here to initiate him into rising into his wholeness and into his full expression. And you're here to mirror to him through having peace within yourself how he is supposed to cultivate peace within. So all of this ties into these roles that men want to project onto you, this fantasy that they have about you. And when you are not embodying that fantasy, this distortion that they have about you that completely dehumanizes you and removes you from being in the full spectrum of your existence and the full spectrum of your expression, then that will cause the entire house of cards of their fantasy or their perception of you to collapse. A woman who is also embodying this self responsibility as the dark feminine is going to terrify and anger men because you are also going to be activating that within other women. And so men are relying on insecure, disembodied, people pleasing, over giving women to exist in order to uphold the fantasies that they have about women being subservient, or women being the helpmeet of men, or women being beings that were created to be in service to them. But when you are embodying that dark feminine frequency and you're holding that energy, you are naturally going to be emitting this energy that is going to catalyze and activate change within the women around you. This is one of the reasons why men have a lot of issues with women talking about these issues on social media and just media in general. And they'll say things like, well, single women keep women single, or, other phrases of that nature that are designed to shame you out of being in your full expression because they are depending on other women who are not honoring or operating and embodying their dark feminine energy to continue to self abandon themselves so that they can mine those women as a resource. A woman who is embodying that dark feminine energy and forces and mirrors back that self-responsibility in men is also not going to be a rescuer. She's not going to be a rescuer. She is not going to constantly reassure. She's not going to overfunction in relationships. A lot of men's identity is centered around women constantly validating them. This is why patriarchy exists. Patriarchy has been constructed in order to validate men's sense of meaning in their life. One of men's biggest fear is being obsolete. Their fear of obsolescence, their fear of not being important, their fear of not having any meaningful contribution to human existence is what has driven so much of patriarchy. And so this is why men are constantly needing women to validate their ego and reassure them and affirm their sense of superiority as leaders, as providers, as protectors, things that men statistically don't live up to. They're just not living up to them statistically as a collective. Are there men that are doing that? Of course, there are men that are doing that, but collectively, men are not living up to it because it's all an illusion. It's all a fantasy. It's one big giant fantasy that they need women to self-abandon themselves in order to uphold. And one more reason why men are terrified of women who embody their dark feminine when it comes to women holding and mirroring back and forcing that self-responsibility in men is that responsibility feels like a punishment. That responsibility feels like they are losing something. And you see this with, the rise of single mothers and men feeling baby trapped by women, or even just the fact that women are raising their standards. Women are no longer settling for men's BS. Women are saying that this is what I require if you want to have access to me. This is what I require if you want to be in a relationship with me, if you want to have sexual access to me. They are creating this standard for themselves that men have to live up to. And by men being held to the standard of deeper responsibility, they're feeling like it's a punishment. They're feeling like something is being done to them that is, that they feel is unfair, or that they feel is an injustice to their own existence. And so this is why we're seeing the rise of red pill content, the rise of men's hatred of women. Misogyny is increasing because as women are gaining more sovereignty, more autonomy, the divine feminine frequency is awakening within women, and women are waking up to the distortions of patriarchy and requiring more of men because of the freedoms that we have. Men see this as a punishment. So, one more thing that I forgot to say that I wanted to add on to is that their, women's erotic power is conditional. Like, it is not something that is guaranteed to men. They're not guaranteed access to our erotic power. And this ties in with everything that I've been saying about collapsing the male fantasy of constantly being sexually available or constantly being open and receptive to whatever men want without requiring anything in return. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about men showing up in a way that is healthy, that is loving, that is consistent, that is reverential of the feminine, that is honoring of the feminine energy, that displays a level of gratitude, gratefulness, reverence for and worship for the feminine principle and the fact that I am allowing you access to the most sacred and impactful and powerful energetic space that I have within my being. And by women holding the standard of making access to them conditional, that is something that absolutely terrifies and infuriates men. All of this ultimately comes down to, women, you know, men wanting to control women. And this is one of the reasons why women are taught to suppress this feminine frequency within them. They're taught to suppress the dark feminine, divine feminine energy within them. It's because a woman who trusts herself, a woman who honors herself, a woman whose love is conditional is ungovernable. She is uncontrollable and she is unpunishable. This type of woman will walk away from nonsense. This type of woman will pull her energy back. She will leave. She will completely cut off access to her because she is so grounded in her power and in her sense of self. And she recognizes that she is whole within and she doesn't need anyone or anything outside of her in order to feel that way, in order to embody that. And so women, through patriarchal distortion, are taught to suppress this part of themselves so that the people who want to control her can have consistent access to her generative capacity. They can have consistent access to her creative life force energy. They can drain and siphon her in this parasitic exchange, this parasitic relationship. And so women are also taught to suppress her because her full expression, her rage, her intuition, her erotic authority are then labeled as dangerous. They are labeled as something that is a detriment to society. I can't remember the name of the guy right now off the top of my head, but his videos were going viral recently because he was having a conversation about the rise of women's freedom and autonomy. And like, is this a problem? Is this something that needs to be contained? Like, what are we going to do about this? Because there are so many men that are single. There are so many men that don't have relationships. And this person that I'm thinking of, he's not the only person who's having these conversations or activating these conversations in the collective right now. These conversations are becoming more and more prevalent and more common because historically women have been taught that our sacred rage, our sacred fire, our erotic autonomy and authority, our intuition, the things about ourselves that are powerful but largely unexplainable to a society that puts so much emphasis on logic and structure. These things are terrifying to that system because these are the sources of a woman's power. And so when you teach a woman that these parts of you are dangerous or these parts of you are, in Abrahamic religions, demonic or against God, then women will naturally suppress those things out of fear of societal retribution, out of fear of being ostracized, out of fear of being lonely or alone. And that has been historically very, very effective in controlling women so that men largely can have access to their creative power. A woman who self abandons is much easier to control than a woman who is sovereign. And the dark feminine is sovereign. She is fully self contained. Again, she does not ask for permission. She is self led. She has strong boundaries. She has strong discernment. She is connected to her intuition. She has deep self trust. And she is not cowed by the manipulations that are projected onto her by society and specifically by men who want to control her in order for him to have access to her. And so one of the things that, you know, not one of the things, but what this all ties into is this sense of being sovereign, this return of feminine power. And that's something that I mentioned at the beginning, because the divine feminine is rising. The divine feminine has risen. She is here. She is back online, and she is waking up in women's consciousness. And so I have created a new offering called Reclamation, because everything that I'm talking about, of what I'm saying about the dark feminine, and if you're seeing yourself being illustrated in what it is that I'm talking about as it relates to self abandoning or being controlled or being in fear of being alone or allowing men to constantly have access to you, reclamation is the offering that I created so that you can reclaim, so that you can take back what has been taken from you, what has been stolen by patriarchy. My offering is called Reclamation, the return of feminine power, because that is what is happening right now. This is what women are being called into. We are being called into and rising into an era where we reclaim what has been stolen from us by patriarchy, by patriarchal distortion. And so, in this offering that begins on February 18th, we're going to be going on a 6-week journey of reclamation, of deep embodiment, of restoring what it is that was stolen from us, of moving out of this concept and consciousness of suppressing ourselves and playing small in this world in order to appease these patriarchal distortions. It is about recognizing the expansiveness of your power, recognizing the bigness that you were meant to be embodying and living in, and continuing to expand in. Some of the pillars that we're going to be going through in this 6-week process is undoing inherited smallness, releasing obedience, self-monitoring, the survival identities that women have, taken on as a way of surviving in this world. We're moving out of surviving and into thriving. We're going to be talking about returning power to the body. So many women are disconnected from their intuition. They're disconnected from their womb. You don't understand that you have a relationship with your womb. Your womb is the primordial intelligence that lives inside of your body. You talk to your womb, and your womb talks back to you. She gives you the answers to every question that you could ever have about how to move through your life. But because you have been disconnected from that in order to be controlled, you don't understand this wisdom that lives within you. Reclaiming fire as ancestral intelligence, your passion, your rage, your feeling, your expression. So many women are disconnected from their inner fire. They're disconnected from feeling and fully expressing unapologetically the rage, the anger, the injustice, the things that are boiling inside of them, that are metastasizing into disease, that are turning into reproductive issues, fibroids, endometriosis, cancer, thyroid issues, all of the diseases that manifest in a woman because that fire and that expression is being suppressed, but it doesn't have anywhere to go. It needs to be released. It needs to be expressed through your body. And so that's going to be one of the pillars that we're going to be anchoring into in this journey of reclamation, is reclaiming that fire as ancestral intelligence and intuition as embodied authority. Going back to what I was saying about the womb and being able to connect with the primordial intelligence that lives within your body, recognizing your intuition as your authority, not some man, not your religion, not the government, not your mother, not the things that you were taught as society, but your own intuitive wisdom that lives inside of you, and honoring that first and foremost as the thing that you use to follow your path, to connect to your soul's mission, to be fully embodied in the truth of who you are. And then finally, devotion. Devotion as your axis of orientation, being so fully devoted, so fully committed to yourself that you will reject anything else outside of you that does not mirror the devotion that you give to yourself. Your devotion is your spiritual practice. It is your daily prayer to yourself, to the goddess, to the dark feminine, to the divine feminine that orients you every single day in your day-to-day life. the way that you show up in the morning, the way that you show up in the afternoon, in the evening, the way that you dress yourself, the way that you pray, the way that you nourish your body, the way that you listen to the cues that your body is giving you of I'm tired, or I need rest, or I need alone time, or I need a vacation, I need a massage, I'm desiring movement, I'm desiring pleasure, being so devoted to yourself that you are constantly on your axis of orientation so that anything that is happening outside of you cannot throw you off that axis of orientation. So if you are feeling this deep in your bones, if you have been hearing the messages coming through the divine, if you've been hearing the voice of the dark feminine calling to you, and you've been feeling disconnected from yourself, you've been feeling like you have given away so much, you have overgiven so much, you have people played so much that when you look in the mirror, you don't even recognize yourself, you don't know who you are. It is time for you to reclaim every single fragment that you have given away, every single fragment that you have abandoned along your life because you were afraid of the consequences of disappointing someone else, or you were afraid of the consequences of stepping out of the standards and confines of a patriarchal society. Reclamation is going to be your portal, your threshold to move out of that space and into full embodiment and to fully rise into your feminine power, to reclaim your feminine power, because that is where your soul's mission lives. That is where your abundance lives. That's where your soul community, your soul tribe will be found. That is where you will find yourself and reclaim yourself. So if you want to know more about that, I'm going to drop a link in the comments. I'm going to pin that for you so that you can click on my website and read through the offering in full. We're currently in early bird pricing. So the prices will be going up over the next 2 weeks without notice. The final price will be, at some point before the offering, I will be anchoring into the final price of that. But right now you can get in at an early bird pricing. That's all listed on the website. When you take a look at that, let me know in the comments how all of this landed with you. What is it that you learned? What is it that you recognized about yourself? What is it that it activated within you and opened up in you? Because so many of you are struggling when it comes to your relationships with men, and you need to understand that the men who are embodied in their full masculine expression are not going to run away from a woman who is fully embodied in her dark feminine expression. You want to be embodying your dark feminine expression, your dark feminine embodiment, because that embodiment is what is going to magnetize to you an embodied masculine who is going to see you in your full power, see you in your full expression, and he's not going to be scared of you. He's not going to run away from you. He's not going to try to manipulate you. He's not going to try to change you. He is going to love you and accept you for who you are, because who you are as the feminine, as the leader, is going to make him more powerful, make him stronger. And he wants to be initiated by a woman who is embodying her feminine frequency, her dark feminine primordial frequency. He is going to be so turned on and so lit up for you. He is going to be in reverence of who you are. He is going to worship you. But you are not going to be able to find, attract, and magnetize that level of masculine if you are not embodying the feminine that you were designed to be. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging with this. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoyed this so that it can push it out to more people. And it also lets me know that you enjoyed this so that I can continue to create more videos like this. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, night, morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm sending you so much love. And I want you to know that you deserve so much better, and it is time to reclaim your birthright because all of it belongs to you.